Hey y'all, it's Elena,
And it's Candace.
and you're listening to Cousins on Crime. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, Candace.
Saturday.
It is Saturday.
Saturday.
Na,
In
na,
the
na.
closet.
Yeah,
Saturday morning vibes over here.
my days are all mixed up. I don't even thank you for telling me it's Saturday because I forgot.
Were you off yesterday or something?
No, it's just since Christmas, like I had
Yeah.
time off for Christmas, and then
Yeah.
we had our nephew Max staying with us, and so just did things with him. And
Yeah.
so if you're listening, Max, hello. He does listen to us.
Shout out.
But yeah, today we're talking about, remember last week I said there's some similarities to
Yes,
your
I do
case.
remember that.
So it's going to sound familiar,
Oh.
but we're talking about Winona Green. So
Okay.
it's Winona Spriggs, aka Winona Green, aka Winona Jones, aka Winona Freeman, aka the
Oh,
Catwoman. So,
AKA Wino Forever.
there you go. That's a good one. So Winona was born as Winona Spriggs in Blue Mountain, Arkansas on October 21st of 1901.
Whoa. Throwback.
She was the oldest of 3 children. Her mother died suddenly when Winona was 6, while her family was traveling by wagon from the Creek Nation of Oklahoma to New Mexico.
Wow.
She grew up poor, and by 1910, her and her father and siblings were living with her grandfather in New Mexico. She was described as an angelic-faced choir girl and had a calm demeanor, but was also known to throw a good fit. Like,
Like most women.
well, she would throw and break dishes.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, I don't know what set her off, but her father was a carpenter. He did odd jobs while she worked. First, she worked in a drugstore as a soda jerk, preparing and serving soda and ice cream sodas.
Aw.
And she sold cigarettes. I don't know why that was
Okay.
important, but so then her second job was she worked in the office of Jesse Spurgeon, a teaming contractor. She knew just about everybody in town, and if I were to describe her from everything that I've read about her, I would say she was a little bit sweet and a little bit salty. So she married a man named Mr. Moore, who was a Tulsa newspaper man. This is really all I know about him. There isn't really any documentation about their marriage. However, the story is that Mr. Moore met her when he was sent to Bixby, Oklahoma by his paper, and later took her to Commerce near Miami, Oklahoma, which is the northeastern part of Oklahoma.
I've never heard of Miami, Oklahoma.
I haven't either. It's the first time, so I did
Sounds
look.
exotic.
I did look on the map, and yes, it's like at the very tip northeast. The two were accused of taking a car at that time that did not belong to them, and they drove it to Utah. Don't know why.
As you do. Joyride.
They were brought back to Oklahoma, but they weren't prosecuted.
That old chestnut.
So Winona was known as a girl who would take desperate chances, but no one thought she would go so far as to murder anyone, as we'll hear about in a little bit. However, desperate times calls for desperate measures.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened to Mr. Moore, but let's jump a few years ahead. In 1922, she married Leroy Green in Oklahoma City. Leroy, who Winona called Roy, was a young and respected man. His parents were wealthy property owners in Little Rock, Arkansas. Winona said that her mother-in-law owed her money, and so she said that she lent her mother-in-law $4,000 at Christmas in 1923.
Wow.
And Winona had asked for it back on several occasions. If they were wealthy, I'm not sure why her mother-in-law would have borrowed such a large amount of money from
Right.
Winona. However, this really irritated Winona.
That's a lot of money. Where did Winona get that money?
Yeah, that's a good question. So she created a plan to get the money back.
Oh.
She decided first to murder her father-in-law, believing that her mother-in-law would pay her back once she gained or obtained the life insurance money.
Wow. That's a little bit extreme.
Yeah. So shortly after midnight, August 17th of 1924, J.R. Green, Winona's father-in-law, was shot to death as he walked home from the Little Rock rail yard where he worked as a switchman. His murder went unsolved for several months, and then her mother-in-law, Lena Green, vanished.
Oh.
Dun, 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 dun. So Winona and Leroy were eventually questioned. At first, the couple denied any knowledge of the slaying or disappearance. Winona couldn't stand seeing that her husband was being accused of the murder, especially while he was grieving the loss of his two parents. So 2 days later, she confessed to both crimes.
Wow.
It didn't take long. She explained how she lay in wait for her father-in-law. When she saw him walking, she started shooting at him. She left him to die. She said she had lured her mother-in-law to Oklahoma with the ruse of showing her some oil holdings. She took Lena to a secluded wooded area and shot and buried her there.
Yikes.
Winona gave specific directions and led authorities to Lena's body. She had even mentioned that she thought about killing her husband as well.
Oh my gosh. What about the money? Like, did she get the money from her mother-in-law?
It
Before she killed
never,
her?
yeah, I didn't see any reports. There was only like 3 good reports that I could find on this story. It's all a lot of information, but
Yeah.
that was not mentioned in there if she got the money or not.
Interesting.
I don't think she even got the chance to get the money.
I feel like when money is the motive for murder, the crime is just so sloppy. Like, it's not thought out. It's motivated by something so,
Greedy.
yeah, greedy. And it's just, nobody thinks it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, she just seemed like she was just going to get what she wanted, and it didn't matter how. So, I don't know. That was one of the confessions that I read about, was that little ruse of taking her mother-in-law and to show her these oil holdings, and then she shot her. So, there's more of a detailed confession here in just a minute. Some speculated the reason for the motive of the murders was it revenge, was it jealousy, or irrational fury? I think it was just pure greed. So in her confession, she says she lent Mrs. Lena Green $4,000. In today's money, that would be equivalent to about $69,000.
Wow. Holy smokes.
Yeah. So on several occasions, she asked Lena to return the loan, and Lena kept putting her off. Eventually, Winona and Leroy decided to leave Little Rock and moved to Pueblo, Colorado, where he got a job as a switchman on the railroad. They got settled into their new hometown, and one day, Winona told Leroy that she was going to Kansas City for a brief visit.
Wait a minute. Did you just say she didn't go to prison for the murders?
So this is her confession. This is like telling us how it all started.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
I gotcha.
yeah, I kind of give you a snippet of the murder, but now this is where she's confessing. She's like saying
Gotcha.
this is why and how.
Okay.
So she's saying
That's spaced out.
she lent the money to Lena. Lena refused to give it to her. Not refused, just kept putting her off. So during all this time, Winona and Leroy moved to Pueblo, Colorado, for Leroy's new job. They settled into their hometown, and one day, Winona told Leroy she wanted to go to Kansas City just to kind of visit there. I don't know if she knew anybody there, but seemed like she liked to travel around. Well, she didn't make it to Kansas City. In reality, she went back to Little Rock. She arrived at her real destination on August 17th of 1924, the night of the murder, to carry out a well-thought-out plan, so she thought. She knew of a shortcut that Mr. J.R. Green would normally take to come home when he got off work, and on that path she lay in wait. As he appeared, she confronted him and demanded $1,000 and explained that his wife owed her a larger sum of money. Mr. Green refused, stating, "I don't believe a word of it." So I guess he didn't know anything about this money that was loaned. I don't think there was really any money that was loaned, but who knows. So he began to walk away from her, and she shot him, and the bullet struck him in the side. He fell to the ground, and several other shots were fired into his head. She says she hid the pistol in a nearby sewer, where it was found by detectives. The magazine was empty, with one shell in the chamber. The confession stated that Winona returned to the railroad station and waited until the Sunshine Special pulled in. Next, she telephoned her mother-in-law and announced that she had just arrived into town. When Lena answered, she was grief-stricken and told Winona the news of her husband's death. Winona rushed to the home where she tried to console Lena.
She's like, "Here's the tissue. Now, about that money."
Yeah, make sure you get that insurance money. So 2 days later, Leroy arrived due to the news of his father's murder, and they all attended the funeral. Winona and Leroy decided to stay and live with Lena in Little Rock. So also in the confession, Winona claims that she and Lena one day went to the bank and both of them withdrew money. She claims that her mother-in-law had bought 2 railroad tickets to Kansas City and that Lena persuaded Winona to accompany her on this trip. So first it was, I created a ruse to take her out of town. Now it's Lena suggested they go out of town together. So once aboard the train, Lena changed her plans and woke Winona up near Claremore, Oklahoma, telling her to dress and get off at that town with her. They stopped and ate waffles, and the two of them left for Tulsa. They arrived in Tulsa, and Lena brought up the issue of the $4,000, complaining because she was so often reminded of it. So Lena brought up the issue, not Winona.
Because that's what she's thinking about right now.
Yeah. So Winona said she became frightened and concerned that Lena was going to hurt her because she was so upset that Winona kept asking her for this money. So Winona managed to secretly buy a pistol and cartridges at a pawn shop while they're on this trip. They then rented a small motor car and started for a country ride. Mother Green, as Winona called her, wanted to shoot Winona at a house. This is what Winona's saying. Mother Green wanted to shoot me at a house that she owned.
What?
I don't know. Apparently she had this house somewhere near Tulsa. apparently. So just out of Tulsa, they arrived out onto a dim mountain road, and that's where Winona shot Lena in fear for her life, so Winona says. So was Winona scared of Lena, or was Winona tricking Lena? So we've got two different stories here. So during the trial and sentencing, Winona seemed poised, composed, and unshaken. Although facing trial on the 2 charges of first-degree murder, she seemed mostly concerned with the ravages that cell life may inflict on her appearance. She was a pretty woman, and she knew it. She said, "I wonder when I'll see the inside of a beauty parlor again."
I was just about to say she's probably worried about salon access.
Yeah, so she says, "Perhaps never. Thank goodness my hair is naturally curly. That helps some. No, I never bobbed it. I was afraid it wouldn't be my style. And Roy, well, he was so fond of my long curls." Another thing she was quoted saying was, "I'm not sorry for my deeds. I planned both murders, thinking them out thoroughly in advance. Now that I have admitted everything, I am willing to meet what fate awaits me."
She sounds so wholesome.
So when the death penalty was mentioned to her, she said, "Who ever heard of a woman being electrocuted or hanged in Arkansas?" And she laughed about it. She just knew she would get out of it.
Yikes.
So Winona consented to an interview shortly after her incarceration. Her demeanor was as if she were meeting for afternoon tea.
Oh.
She says, "No, I have no actual regrets over the killing of Mother Green. I consider it self-defense. No matter what others may think of it, I do feel quite sorry, however, that I was goaded into taking Dad's life." So she, at one point, had said that Mother Green had suggested that they kill him for the insurance money. So now she's saying she was goaded into killing him. She says, "Was I crazy at the time? I guess I must have been. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it."
You're the perfect person to read her words.
And then she says, "But then I have a terrible temper. No, indeed, I am not troubled with bad dreams or nightmares, which are just exaggerated versions of bad dreams. I sleep as soundly as could be every night, and my appetite, it's just splendid." She says, "The food here is fine. Contrasted with what Mother Green used to give us, I assure you. One reason why I hated her so was because she was so stingy. She would walk 2 miles just to save 1 cent on a pound of sugar. She saved and pinched whenever possible. Then she hated me on account of Roy. He was her only child, and she was jealous of his love for me. But," she adds with a smile, "please don't look at my fingernails. They must be a sight. It's so long since I've had a manicure."
Oh my gosh, this woman.
Yes. So yeah, she didn't have a care in the world.
No.
She just wanted money. Her husband, calling her crazy and a chameleon, said her true colors came out. He divorced her after she was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment for murdering his father and mother. On April 13th of 1925, a news article in Memphis, Tennessee read, "Mrs. Winona Green, under life sentence for killing her husband's parents, escaped from county jail
No.
at Little Rock, Arkansas, Saturday night, and was captured Sunday walking along the Missouri Pacific Railroad tracks near the Union Station here. Little Rock officers arrived late Sunday and went back to Arkansas with their prisoner."
I'm always impressed when, way back then, before CCTV, social media, like, I'm always so impressed that police catch people so fast.
Yes, but I also think, like, it's this is all country, like it's
Yeah.
not built up
Right.
yet,
Like,
and
everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And so when they see an out of towner, they're like, "Oh, who are you?"
Yeah.
And I mean, there's the Pony Express, the newspapers going about
Right.
town. So
Hey, isn't that the curly-headed lady with the bad fingernails that we heard about?
yeah. And we'll post there's news article clippings of like,
Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
yeah. So, of her angelic face in the gel. So apparently she escaped by sawing through 3 iron shutters
Wow.
at the county jail in Little Rock, and she jumped 20 feet to the
Oh
ground.
my gosh. This is so, like, so familiar.
Yes.
Did it say where she got a saw? Or, like, what she used to saw
No.
the bars?
No. I have no idea.
Holy moly.
Police had discovered footprints indicating someone had passed through a field near the prison. Upon their investigation, there was no trace of Winona. So when officers got to her in Memphis, she said that she rode in a taxi cab from Little Rock to Kensett, Arkansas, and later boarded a train to Memphis. She traveled on a Missouri Pacific train in the Union Station, and she feared that she would be arrested if she went through the main entrance of the station, so she strolled back into the yard,
Okay.
the rail yard. Patrolmen in English saw her and approached to ask why she was walking on the tracks.
Right.
Believing that he already knew who she was, Winona was honest and told him who she was.
Well, I just escaped, and that's fine.
Authorities were notified, and she was transferred to the state farm in Jacksonville.
Oh.
If you want to learn something new like I did, the Arkansas State Farm for Women was also known as the P Farm.
Oh.
It was made up of 185 acres of containing screened-in tents where inmates slept, and a collection of buildings where they would cook, clean, canned vegetables, raised chickens, and did laundry.
Okay. Doesn't sound so bad.
Well, I mean, this is not the first place she was, but this is where she was transferred since she escaped.
Well, isn't this a better situation than where she was?
It is. It is.
Oh.
And so it wasn't clear. Like, it says screened in tents, but I'm like, was there a fence around
Right.
this complex where they weren't able to get out? I don't know. Didn't say, but I'm assuming that's what I'm going to tell myself. But programs were implemented there to focus on rehabilitation rather than punishment. The purpose was to create a productive class of women who would dutifully contribute to the household and local economies when they were released. Okay, so she got life imprisonment. I don't know why they would want to release her.
Right. That's
But
like exactly what you said. It's like Pee Wee Gaskins. Why are they making exceptions?
yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Especially when she escaped.
Exactly. Like, come on, guys.
Okay, you didn't like prison. Here you go.
Here's you some fun. So some believed that a lack of feminine qualities led women to embrace a life of crime.
Okay. What?
So that's why they came up with this reform. When a new inmate would arrive, she would bathe, dress in a gingham dress,
Okay.
and
Cute.
was given a complete medical examination.
Oh.
Every day she woke up early and had to follow a strict schedule, from breakfast to ironing to sewing class and then lunch. She would go to classes and then have evening activities.
But this sounds
Other
great.
women.
I want to go there.
I know, it's like camp.
I want to wear a gingham dress and go to sewing class.
Other women hauled vegetables, repaired clothing, and set tables for dinner. The strictest discipline was making every inmate share in the responsibility of a home. You know, I know a few people in this life and today that could use
that
this
concept.
Just kidding. No. Sorry, not sorry. Over the next several years, she was in and out of prison several times.
What?
Much like Mr. Pee-wee that you told us about.
Wow.
In 1931, Winona needed to be admitted into Boonville Tuberculosis Sanatorium.
Yikes.
The Boonville Institution Board refused to admit prisoners. So the solution was by Governor Parnell. He approved for her indefinite furlough. In essence, she was paroled, and Winona was able to enter the sanatorium in California for treatment. I'm not sure when she was released from the sanatorium, but she was released and she was just let out living life.
Wow.
And she got married again in 1932 to Herbert Jones. In 1935, after about 4 years of freedom, Governor Lee Kazort revoked the furlough and ordered her back to prison to finish her life sentence.
Right.
Well, not just for nothing. You see, Governor Kazort was prompted to do this when she was arrested in connection with an alleged attempt to cash a forged check.
Oh, my Lord.
So while in prison, Herbert, he decided he was going to divorce her in 1938, right. And she was still imprisoned. Going on to April 26th of 1939, Governor Bailey granted a 12-month extension of furlough. She was ill again.
Oh, for the love.
So yes, she was ill and she required treatment that the penitentiary could not provide. She was released to go to the home of a sister in Oklahoma.
What?
Girl.
This is shocking.
So the extension, the furlough extension was only supposed to be 12 months. That was in 1939. Well, in 1942,
what?
She's still living free, and she marries her third husband, James Freeman. James went by Jimmy. An article from January 13th of 1948 says, one of Arkansas's most notorious women criminals, Winona Green Spriggs, will be returned to the state women's prison to complete serving a life term for murder. She had been on continuous furlough since 1939 because of her poor health. And here it is, 1948, 9 years later, she's 47. She was arrested again in Muskogee, Oklahoma, on multiple charges of issuing a cashing fictitious checks.
Seriously?
Yeah. So again, she's ordered back to prison.
Like,
she just can't help herself.
That's the thing. It's like you've gotten away with murder, essentially. You have, because you were supposed to serve life, and now you're out living a life.
But remember, she laughed about
right.
her imprisonment because she knew she would get away with it.
This is so mind-boggling to me. And then you just commit these petty crimes and get caught again. Why can't you just leave it at that? Like, be like, okay, I got away with murder. I'm going to go get a job at Home Depot, you know? Or the Pony Depot, whatever they had back then.
Yeah, I mean, but it is the early 1900s. They did not have all kinds of laws, and the jails were small.
That's insane.
I guess they couldn't house anyway, so I don't know. Okay, so she was ordered back to prison again, but y'all, I do not know how she got out yet again.
No.
I don't know. Okay, so that was in 1948. We're going to jump from 1948 to 1953.
She escaped again?
I don't know how she was out.
Okay, so they could have just released her again for being sick.
Right. I'm assuming so because the next thing that I saw about her was in 1953. So she's 52 now, and she's still married to Jimmy.
Oh.
And they lived near Salinas, California.
Salinas.
She managed an apartment complex there. Maybe she's now going to be a productive member of society like she learned how to do on the pea farm. Let's see. A 78-year-old Harold Jonasson was a retired rancher. He came to be a tenant of Winona's. He had few friends, but he had a big bank account. He became close to Winona and he trusted her. He saw a friend in her and she saw dollar signs.
Right. I guess he didn't know her, really.
Right. So I hate to tell you, but little Miss Winnie, she fell back into her greedy old habits. She began forging Harold's name on checks made out to her name. She had already obtained $734 of Harold's money, and in today's money, that would be equivalent to about $8,000. And she was out to take all she could get.
She's going to ride that horse. It's amazing that she made it out to herself, you know? Like, why not make it out to some fake person? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, he's 78.
Again.
He trusts her.
Yeah. Greedy plans are never well thought out.
Right. So on December 3rd of 1953, a news article says, "Have you seen this man since November 23rd?
No.
Believed to be a missing person. He is Harold Jonasson, 78, of room number 1 at 244 Pajaro Street. Anyone having knowledge as to Mr. Jonasson's whereabouts since November 23rd is asked to contact Salinas Police immediately. He is described as being 5 feet 8 or 10 inches tall and weighing 175 pounds. Mr. Jonasson has blonde hair and is almost bald, wearing glasses at times, and walks with a slight limp." So not long after his disappearance, the investigation led detectives to Winona and her prior criminal record. So she was taken in for questioning, and during her polygraph exam, she broke down and confessed to killing Harold, and she was arrested.
Right.
In her confession, she said she accidentally shot Harold while they were rabbit hunting. She felt that he became suspicious of her taking his money, and she drove him to a desolate location, shot him, made sure he was dead, and hid his body under some bushes. So
2 more stories again.
Well, these were 2 confessions that I saw, so I'm assuming she said one and then she admitted, okay, yeah, I knew he was. But during the trial, it was all an accident.
It seems like she's confessing, like, the truth in the moment, like in the heat of the moment under the pressure, because she seems to be one of those people, like she said, she had a hot temper. She'd fly off the handle, so she seems to be like an overly emotional person who would, oh, okay, I did it. You know, I shot him. I made sure he was dead. But then when she has time to cool off and then prepare for the trial, she comes up with another story to, like, save her skin.
Exactly. She's sweet and salty. So authorities, they didn't even know where Harold's body was until Winona confessed and led them to the crime scene, where he still lay 9 days after she shot him. Jimmy Freeman, her husband, took the stand as the first defense witness in the murder trial of his wife. He said that he knew nothing about the shooting until he read about it in the paper on December 5th. The defense lawyers insisted that the shooting truly was an accident, and she was afraid that no one would believe that it was an accident because of her history.
Right.
And so she hid his body in fear of going back to prison, and she told no one. Her trial drew big crowds and reporters. Reporters dubbed Winnie the Catwoman. After it was discovered that she had about 25 cats at her apartment complex.
Oh.
You know, and it just makes me wonder, did she have these cats to mask a smell of death? Like,
interesting.
How many other people did she do this to?
Right. It was nothing. It seems like it was nothing to her. Like,
yeah.
Oh, I'll just kill them.
Yeah. So in the midst of all of this, news of her trial reached Ottawa County in Oklahoma. The sheriff there notified Salinas police that he had a warrant charging Winnie with the murder of Robert Sheldon Wilkinson.
Huh? Who's that?
So Robert, he was a rich war veteran. His body was found weighted down in Grand Lake near Miami, Oklahoma,
Wow.
where she lived with her sister.
Right.
Police Chief Arch C. Masterson said the accusation was based on circumstantial evidence. So, same motive, different murder.
Right.
Winnie had not searched Robert well enough when she read about the $1,841 that authorities discovered on Robert's money belt. Witnesses heard her say, "So that's where he kept the bleeping money."
Wow.
So she killed him and searched his body, could not find the money.
Wow. What an idiot.
So at the age of 52, Winona was convicted and given life in prison yet again.
Okay.
The judge said she should never be admitted to parole until she is at least in such a weakened condition that she cannot hold a gun.
Or
Is that it?
anything.
Or at any time.
Right.
So Jimmy, he divorced Winona in 1971. They had a long marriage together. And Winona, this brings us to the end of her life. She died October 30th of 1974. And her obituary reads, "Winona Spriggs was a gentle old woman." What?
Who wrote that?
With a lively twinkle in her eye.
Wow.
And a quick wit. The savior of countless stray cats. And a good neighbor. What?
Wow.
When she died yesterday in Redlands, San Bernardino County in California, at the age of 73, she was also a convicted murderer who spent 48 of her last 50 years in prison in either 3 states or running from the law.
That was in her obituary?
Yes.
Wow.
Her last 2 years were spent at 32361 Dunlop Boulevard in Yucaipa on parole. This address was the Silva Knoll Rest Home in Yucaipa, and whose operator was Mrs. Silva. Mrs. Silva had gone to Winnie's aid and helped her get her paroled in 1972, so she wouldn't have to die in Corona prison, where she was serving a life sentence.
So she got to die an old lady warm in her bed.
Mm-hmm. She did.
Ay, ay, ay.
So, yeah, that's all I have for you.
Wow.
Her whole life.
That is wild. Like, that's Pee Wee Gaskins with a bit of whimsy. And, like, less murder.
Yeah, just trickery and...
But just as, like, what is going on?
Yeah.
If you think about all the different facilities that are involved and how many times she was arrested, there was not one person along the way that was like, guys, we have got to lock her up.
Yeah. And she would only be taken back when she would mess up forging checks.
Wow. I just can't.
And like the 12-month extension of the furlough, like, okay, it's 12 months now. Bring her back. She's well enough to go back. But no, you let her just out and live
through the
life.
Cracks.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what case it was, but someone was out on parole and they were visited. Oh, I know what it was. J.C. Dugard. Her abductor was out on parole and he was visited like over 60 times when he had her in his backyard.
Yes.
And
yes.
it just, they never searched, like they never looked around and just fell through the cracks. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow, yeah. Lena, that was a wild one.
Yes.
That was wild.
I had fun researching that one just because I like I like history
Uh-huh.
and like the early 1900s. Like sometimes I feel like I should have lived back
Yeah.
then.
I could see you in a gingham dress. Canning vegetables.
Yeah.
But like
I
for your own, like on your own accord, not because you were made to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a hard life back then. I like the ease of life now, but yeah, sometimes it's just that time era
Simpler
just fascinates
times.
me.
Yeah. Less pressure, less like a slower pace. Totally.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, thank you for that. That was fun.
sweet and salty. Yeah.
Yeah, sweet and salty.
It was fun. So, yeah, let's do it again.
Let's do it again. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, thank you for listening to Cousins on Crime. If you're enjoying our podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating so that other true crime fans can find us.
If you have any case suggestions or just want to say hey, email us at cousinsoncrime@gmail.com. And be sure to follow us on Instagram where we post case photos and information at Cousins on Crime Podcast.